everyone, and welcome back to Two Wise Girls podcast. Thank you guys for 500 subscribers. If you're not already subscribed, you can join the club down below. Make sure to like all of those things. Last episode, we went on a bit of a Medea, feminist tangent, and very welcomed. Especially, so I thought that my brain had invented the story of Euripides taking a bribe from the city of Corinth. I was like, I don't know why nobody ever talked about that. It's in the Wikipedia article, which I know isn't really much, but apparently it's like an urban legend that's been passed on since ancient times of why that particular story is different. And I just thought that that was worth backing up our Medea rant with that of there is a possibility that Euripides got paid off to make it seem like she's this infanticidal maniac.
Well, yeah, and the whole point of that whole thing really was just that even now, there's all these conflicting stories about things like that have happened. Like every true crime is a horrible thing that exists because people can't decide what they think happens in cases, and they think that they can figure it out. I'm trying to remember how these chapters start because there's a lot in them, even though not a lot plot-wise happened. A lot of stuff inside their little minds happened.
Yeah, so we start off in Leo's perspective. They escape the flaming department store, and Leo's thinking the same thing that I've been thinking this entire time. Oh no, what if Festus starts actually breaking down?
Yeah.
And let's see. He also, okay, so this part I thought was interesting too, and this goes back to something I feel like I've always said, which is manipulative people don't take stuff out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
And so Medea using the boys' insecurity on each other, Leo almost recognizes it without putting the blame in the proper place. He's mad at himself because he's like, oh, that was always in me of being slightly resentful of Jason because he gets all the attention and because he's the leader of the group. But he doesn't quite get to the exact point of, and Medea used that resentment to make me do her bidding.
Yeah, and Leo is doing that thing that people like him do, which is things that I did, especially when I was a teenager and in my 20s, where he's being super hard on himself while not showing any of that on the outside. And just everyone has those moments, especially when you're a traumatized child. You definitely have moments where you're jealous or whatever of somebody else because they seem to have things that you don't have. And it's one of those things that you don't know, what's actually going on in their life, obviously, and you're young. And so it's completely rational to feel that way. I remember when I was in middle school and I was going through literal hell on earth. Yeah. And I felt like one of the popular kids at my middle school in my grade was I was they're popular, they're rich, they lived in these huge mansions, would go to Aruba on spring break and stuff, while my mom was working 4 different jobs and we still didn't have any money. And so I was like, there's nothing wrong with this girl's life. And then one day in English class, she did a paper and read it out loud about how her mom had died from early onset dementia when she was only 30 years old, when she was a baby. And so she's terrified of having a baby and then ending up getting the same thing and dying really young like her mom did. And I remember going home and telling my mom about that and me realizing you never know what's going on in somebody's life, because I thought her life was perfect and everything was great. But she has this huge thing in her life. My parents are both alive. My mom's not going to die from early onset dementia. And so I just realized that in that moment. And that's basically what Leo is doing, except that he's being really, really mean to himself at the same time. And God, oh God.
Yeah, so he's thinking to himself, not Medea manipulated me to do these things, but it was still my fault. So it's my fault. I attacked Jason because I have these feelings of resentment. And even finding out that that night his mom died, that Medea's the reason that Gaia was there. He's just like, oh, but I'm still the one who attacked, so it's me.
Oh my God. I feel like when I say this stuff, I feel like I'm talking to myself of just the whole thing of like, I get that it's hard to let go of the coping skill that it's somehow always your fault. And because it's horrible, but it also feels kind of nice because it feels like you have control over it. But reading this, I was like, Leo, can you not? Can you not? I know he does. Obviously, I've read these books already. But I'm like, can you not do this where you keep finding a way for it to be your fault? Like how can that possibly be your fault that these like millions of years old immortal magic beings are coming after you because you have these powers? How could that possibly be because of you? I'm pretty sure it's because of them. Um Anyway, this whole part, like when they're on the Festus before everything goes crazy, it felt like to me like another parallel to the original series, but like backwards,
Yeah.
where like because during this whole part, Leo is like beating himself up, and and him and Jason keep trying to get Piper to tell them about whatever happened, whatever is going on with her dad. And they won't, and she won't tell them. And she keeps trying to to the point that she like pretends to fall asleep or just does fall asleep, where she's doing like literally anything to avoid having to tell them about what's going on with her dad. But like they actually remember hearing Medea say something about that. And so they keep trying to ask her about it. They keep trying to talk to her about it, and she won't like respond. And so anyway, this whole part, everyone's getting frustrated with each other.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this is the literal like backwards of what happens in the original quest. Like the original quest, they're not really friends when they start. Like Percy and Grover are, but they're still like in this weird place because Grover lied to him for a year. But still, like Percy and Annabeth definitely are not. And then as the quest goes along, they get closer the further it goes, where he ends up like confiding in them about things by the time they get to the end, because he realizes that they actually like him and trust him and stuff. These people started off as like friends, even though a lot of it wasn't necessarily real. They felt like it was real though. And as the quest goes along, they just keep arguing about more things and getting frustrated with each other the further it goes. I'm like, this is not how this is supposed to go. It's going like the opposite way, where they're all getting frustrated with each other because Piper won't tell them what's going on. Leo didn't tell them about the whole fire thing and is not telling them everything either. Jason does not have the capabilities of keeping secrets from them because he doesn't remember anything. But if he did, he probably would be too right now. And and I was just like, this is interesting how it's like the opposite thing is happening to these kids, that they're like arguing and going back and forth with each other and stuff like that, instead of it like bonding them together like what usually happens.
Yeah. So, on the theme of like going back to the lightning thief and repeating motifs from that, Leo has this thought process of if souls are coming back from the underworld, was it possible that his mom could be brought back? And that, of course, stuck out to me like crazy because we've been talking about the fact that this repeats so much from that. Because I've been thinking all along, oh, the parent they're going to give back is Piper's. And that may be true, but it's kind of interesting that it's multiple kids fighting for their parents here.
Yeah, and it's like Leo is talking about his mom and wanting to see her again. Piper's like refusing to even believe really that she could save her dad, but still like wants to. But it's so Piper is doing what Percy does in the beginning parts of the Lightning Thief, really. Well, up until like the very end, really. He
Yeah.
just he wants to save her, but by the end he realizes that he really likes these people and he's afraid that he's going to have to betray them to get his mom back, and then realizes that they're actually on his side. Piper is listening to two people be like, we're on your side, we want to help you, can we help you, can we help you save your dad? And she's so convinced that the villains that tell her that these kids or her friends are going to die, that she just like refuses to tell them anything. And so they're like the two of them are like a mix of that whole thing with Percy, just in like slightly different ways. Because like Leo's mom died like years before this, and so he doesn't think that it's possible. It didn't happen right now. It's happening right now for Piper, and people are like offering her the help that Percy didn't necessarily get right away, but she's just like rejecting all of it because she's like so sure that what everyone is telling her is just like what's actually going to happen, because she
Yeah.
hasn't realized that they lie.
Well, it's a convenient excuse to tell them, oh, well, we can't go to the Bay Area because Medea said you're going to die there.
Yeah.
And so, like, it's a convenient excuse for her to be like, I'm not the next Selena Beauregard. I'm not going to betray my friends. I'm not going to fall into this trap, too. All of the things she thinks she's preventing.
Ay, ay, ay. And so that's basically what's going on right now. And the dragon is making weird noises. And they're all like arguing about, like, almost like arguing about who is going to like stay awake, because they all want to be like the noble fighter and stay awake. It's like, oh, one of you can stay awake, the other two can go to sleep. Oh my god. Just let yourself sleep, for the love of Christ. I don't even know what to say about that.
Exactly. So Piper's already taken up one of the spots pretending to be asleep, and Jason and Leo fight for it for a second. And it's eventually decided Leo gets to sleep because he's taken watch a few times now and he's definitely tired.
Mm-hmm.
And immediately starts having a dream of Hephaestus.
Mm-hmm.
And I like how this was written because it's a real dream. First of all, it's a real communication from Hephaestus, and it's an underground communication because, as we know, Zeus has locked everybody up and said, "You guys can't talk to your kids. You can't help them out or anything like that." And so Hephaestus, we find out, has this like old school radio that he's been using since like Cold War era, and just he's able to kind of infiltrate the airwaves for a while. Zeus can sense them, but it takes Zeus a while to catch on that he's like getting through to one of his kids. There's a couple of things in here that were interesting to me. Hephaestus had genuine affection for Leo's mom. We get that sense pretty immediately. It like says that Leo's sense of humor reminds him of his mom, and also says that he misses her. And we find out that the funeral was a time where Hephaestus thought of like breaking the rules and going to visit him. Also, again, when you were in 5th grade, that science project he made, steam-powered chicken chucker, very impressive. So, like, wanted to go visit him strictly based off of a science experiment, too. And Leo goes from, like, at first being snippy with him and being, like, mad that Hephaestus never showed his face before, to suddenly realizing, oh, he's just really bad with people, and he likes being in his workshop, and he likes working with his automatons, so he's kind of just like me. And he, like, lets go of that, and I think it lets them have what honestly feels like one of the more healthy god and child relationships in this book series.
Mm-hmm. People have, like people in the Percy Jackson fandom, they usually talk about Hephaestus as one of the gods that is nicer. He's not like perfect, of course. He's one of the gods in the story, and so he's never going to be super great. But it is true that when it comes to how he treats his kids, I think he is one of the better ones. He's nice to Percy in the first 5 books when most of the other gods are not at all. And so that combined with how he treats Leo, especially this part of it, does help. it always, I always have to mention though that it's such a cop out that the gods are like, well, the fates say that we can't intervene, and so we just stay away forever. And I'm like, you're just pussies. You're pussies. You're just afraid to talk to your children because you know if you do, instead of watching them from afar, that they might like be mad at you. They might like it's that whole thing that if you go up and talk to somebody who you know might be upset with you, the like facade that you have in your head will be ruined about what you think they would think of you or whatever. And so they just stay
Mhm.
away from their kids and use that as a reason to justify it. Like, oh, well, I can't talk to my kids because of the fates. I'm like, no, you can't talk to your kids because you're a little baby and you're afraid that, and you can't take a literal child telling you that you suck as a parent. Um, you should probably work on that considering that you're in like a being that can't die. And this is the thing that's so hard for you, a child.
Yeah,
Your own child just talking to you is the thing that like brings you down to your knees. That seems like a problem.
pretty much. And you keep having them for some reason. Let's see. So Festus says something that Leo senses is he's saying too much, like he's giving too much big of a hint here. And
Mm-hmm.
he says, because like basically, oh, so you're watching kids? Are you just watching me, or are you watching all your kids? And the way Hephaestus responds to that is that the gods can be omnipresent in a way. He says, we can exist in many places at once. Whenever people call on us, wherever our sphere of influence is strong. In fact, it's rare our entire essence is ever together in one place, our true form. It's dangerous, powerful enough to destroy any mortal who looks upon us. So, yes, lots of children. Add to that our different aspects, Greek and Roman, and then he like stops himself there.
Mm-hmm.
So we're getting the sense here now of what Rick is building and what I mean theoretically he's been building since he's using that whole like you can't see a god in its true form as a part of this,
Mm-hmm.
of just like oh yeah, they're not only are they omnipresent, it's like shattered pieces of themselves.
Yeah, they're like it's hard to describe. They're just in there's beings that can be in so many different places at once because time doesn't necessarily work the same way for them. That's like honestly the best way to describe it.
Yeah.
Um I thought this part was interesting. Festus is being like nice, of course, to Leo, but I thought this part was interesting the way that he describes like, what happened with Zeus
Mm-hmm.
and his interesting thoughts about why he decided to like shut down Olympus and cut them off and make all
Yes.
the decisions they did. Um, because just for you, because you haven't read these books before, you've obviously heard me ranting about this for like 2 years at this point. But still, if you were Leo, and we already know that Leo is somebody that um, he feels like jealous of people that he thinks has things that he doesn't have,
Mm-hmm.
or whatever, or like people think or pay attention to people more than he does because his abandonment complex, honestly. And so he's sitting here listening to his dad talk about Percy and talking about how Percy made them, you know, actually claim their children, and that Zeus is blaming Percy for making them do that because they're embarrassed by the fact that their children were able to save them and save the war and they couldn't figure it out and they had the wrong plan. And then when they offered Percy to become a god, he told them no. And so they feel embarrassed that this child doesn't like worship them
Yeah.
and doesn't like think about them like that, doesn't want to be a god. He wants to stay himself. He wants to live his own life. He doesn't like want to be one of the gods. He doesn't want to be somebody in power like that. He just wants them to do what their job and then continue to live his life. And so if you're someone like Leo that already like can get like jealous of people like that, like just it's like reading this, I was like, I'm so annoyed that I know like why all this stuff that happens later happens between the two of them, because it's like, yeah, of course Leo's not going to like him because this is the first thing that Hephaestus has ever told him about him
Yeah.
is that he's the one that that did that decision, and the gods are blaming him for it. And either way, he's somebody that they keep talking about. Um, and he's either way made these big choices that have like led to these things now happening in Leo's life, where he's
Yeah.
now in the middle of this prophecy. Um, and yeah, the way that
Yeah.
they meet is literally like the worst way to meet when it does happen, but it does like very easily like foreshadow the characterization that it's not a leap at all to understand that Leo would have problems with Percy. And it is like a sad thing because if he would like stop that, Percy and him would be good friends. And Percy would probably actually help him a lot with everything because they are like vaguely similar about a lot of things. They just deal with it very differently. But you can
Yeah.
see why that is like such a barrier for him for so long. Because if he's like feeling jealous about Jason, God help us about what he would think about Percy, who was the one that like was the one who was the savior for the last quest that directly led to this one. That the
Yeah.
gods are still trying to blame for everything when that's super duper not his fault.
Yeah, he's haunting the narrative this entire book for not being in it. And yeah, so to reiterate what you said, Zeus has a couple things going on. Hephaestus reveals a couple things about Zeus that are this whole mess of what's happening. So he's blocked all visions, dreams, and iris messages to and from. Hephaestus believes this is partially the embarrassment of the demigods being the one who led the plan that won the Second Titan War, but also the insults of Percy not wanting immortality and like, oh, so what's better than immortality then, child? Um, and yeah, in addition to this, Zeus could tell that Gaia was rising up again. And so he thought, okay, if we just like get out of here, stop interacting with our kids again, everything will be set right and we could just go back to normal. But
Because
that's
that's
obviously,
totally how life works.
yeah, it's totally not happening. I mean, okay, so Festus said something too here where let's see. He says Percy had the nerve to turn down our offer of immortality and tell us to pay better attention to our children. No offense. And it's like even somebody who the fandom has decided is one of the better parents here is, like somewhat taken back by, oh, these children that I keep making, I have to pay attention to them now.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of my whole thing with Percy always is that he Hephaestus is one of the nicer gods. When it comes to how he treats his children and how he talks to the other demigods and stuff, like I just said that he did help Percy in Battle of the Labyrinth, and
Yes.
he voted to keep him alive. In Titan's Curse, he was one of the ones that said that he should not die at the end of that book, which thank you for that. But at the same time, it's like there's still abusive parents,
Mm-hmm.
and even if he's one of the better ones, he still is an abusive parent. And even if it's just like neglect, because he just like refuses to get involved, basically,
Mm-hmm.
because he just like hides away somewhere else, that's still abuse.
Yeah.
And this is how that comes out that he's still like, how does this child have the audacity to not want to be me? And it's like, what about you and your family makes you think that he would want to be like you?
Hey, boy. On account of the fact that he's the son of Kronos.
What?
Oh, I'm sorry. Did you not know that?
No, It's just that's a stupid reason.
Oh.
Zeus is also a son of Kronos. Why doesn't he just brood himself?
You're talking crap about your mother in this scene by saying that you don't like her, but you understand that they have to go save her anyway. You spend all of your time alone because you don't like being around your siblings, but it still surprises you that this child doesn't want to be like you, that he doesn't want to be in this world, that he doesn't think that his life would be better as an all powerful god that never dies. Like, why would he want to do that? But it's like they generally can't imagine, like, they just, like, can't imagine the idea that their children wouldn't want to be like that. And this is why this stuff is such a fun allegory for abusive, like, people, organizations, structures, whatever you want to, like, copy paste onto them in our world, because that's how those people act. They generally can't fathom the idea that you don't want to be like them, that you don't, like, want something from them. And they're just like, I don't know how to respond now. And I'm like, go away.
The other thing we find out here is that the gods don't think they can stand another battle against the Titans, especially considering they'll have to work with their demigod children again, and like, oh, the embarrassment, I have to work with my children, oh no. But they're already weakened because they just fought the Titan battle. And the way that Hephaestus describes this, I thought it was interesting. So he says that the reason that the battle with the giants is even more dangerous is Gaia and Uranus, Earth and Sky. They had all of the Titans. They're the ones that originated the race of the Titans. After that, Earth bore a new batch of children, except they were sired by Tartarus, the spirit of eternal abyss, the darkest, most evil place in the underworld. Those children, the giants, were bred for one purpose: revenge on us for all of the Titans. They rose up to destroy Olympus, and they came awfully close. So, yeah, like, just giving us the mythological background of this battle is going to be even harder. It's going to be even more intense because that is literally what this exact race is brought about for.
Yeah, and I like to, I'm glad you said that, just because I like to try to remind people to keep that in mind when you think about the characters that are in these books, that are in the other books, like how tired they would be by just all of this, because I already went through this 4 months ago. Like,
Yeah.
4 months ago is when Luke died. That's hardly any time at all. And so they're not ready. And that's part of why I think the kids in this part that are going on the quest start off older. They're not like little 12-year-old kids. Besides that, Percy made a rule that they can't do that anymore. That's one of the rules, that they can't go on quests until they're at least 13. But still, it's also a thing that I think these kids have to be older from the beginning, because it all happened so quickly that they don't have time to get ready for it. They have to be ready for it right now, because the people that like did it the last time are still exhausted, and they just like can't do it all over again without other people helping them with it.
Yeah. So you brought up being claimed, and it's something that Leo asks about too, because he asks, like, why wasn't I claimed at 13 then, when I was supposed to have been? Or, like, why didn't you find me sooner? Why didn't you warn me about all of this stuff? Hephaestus uses the age-old excuse that we see from the gods in these books, which is, hands are tied. Sorry, not allowed. And the way he says it, and I mean, the way he says it is true for any parent, but we know that it's something extra with him because it is neglect. But like he says, hardest part, boy, letting my children walk their own paths, which is true. You know, like I literally have a teenager now, and I am at that space where it's like, gotta let him blossom a little bit, right? And it's so hard to let kids do that, but that's not what he has trouble doing.
No.
He doesn't, it's the opposite. He has trouble being involved.
Yeah, and that's always my big critique of the gods overall, is like, I used to rail on Hermes. I hope he's not in any of these books. I don't remember if he is. But at least in the first 5, I used to rail on him for that on purpose, because he deserves it.
Luke is trying to tear down Olympus, and you're trying to save him.
He's my son.
He hates you.
You are putting yourself in this position. You could be in that child's life. You just can't like tell them what to do. You have to like let them live their own life. That's not hard. That's when you actually love children, and see children as human beings, not just like an extension of yourself,
Yeah.
it's incredibly easy to be in their life and to be excited to watch them do their own thing and whatever, even if it stresses you out sometimes, without them knowing any of that, even if it's hard for you. Like I just don't have any patience for any of that. And like I don't have any children, but I have a 3-year-old niece, and like hell, I would ever just disappear from her life, even
Mhm.
though she's getting close to the age ish where like things will be difficult for me because I'll be the same age that stuff was happening with me. I'm
Yeah.
not going to disappear from her life because that's hard for me. I'm an adult. Grow up. Like I'm not going to be that selfish to just like disappear from her life when she wants me around because it's hard for me. That's part of being an adult. When you're the adult, is to be there for your child or children, even if it's difficult. Like, it's not exactly easy for me to see kids, even that I don't really know that well, online suffering. And knowing that it's going to take 1,000 years for anything in their life to improve. I'm not going to just like stop caring about them. That's ridiculous. But that's basically what the gods are like. They're like, well, it's hard for me, so I'm just going to disappear from your life forever because that's easier. And tell
Yeah.
myself that I'm being a martyr. Like, shut up.
That isn't your fault, Leo. Nothing lasts forever, not even the best machines, and everything can be reused.
Yeah.
And Leo says, "What do you mean I don't like the sound of that?" He's like, "No, you shouldn't. Just watch out for." And he wakes up to Piper and Jason screaming and them in a free fall again.
Yeah. Because Festus is like actually like super dying this time.
Yeah, Festus is literally cold when he wakes up. Like eyes, no light behind them, machinery actually cold. He ends up telling Jason, "You take Piper and I'm gonna try to figure out Festus." Like he thinks that he has an actual shot at it if he gets the weight of Piper and Jason off. Even though Festus is actually carrying not just Leo, but 2 cages full of Venti and Coach Hedge. So
This is like the whole thing with Leo, that when he feels like he's done something wrong or something, or when the ways that he deals with being scared is by trying to just deal with it himself and like
Mhm.
sending everybody else away. This is a pattern that he does a lot, where it's that whole thing where he like isolates himself, basically like tells people that could help him to leave, but then later on will be like upset that people don't want to help him or don't
Mhm.
ask to help him or don't like consider helping him. And it's like because you keep pushing everybody away every time they try, so once you do that for a while, people just stop trying,
Exactly.
because you get the idea that you don't want help. But that this is like already that whole thing going on with him, that he's like, I have to save my dragon by myself because it's somehow my fault, even though he's the
Yeah.
one that fixed it. Like at all, like they were going to burn it alive at camp before he was able to somehow bring it back to life in any sort of way anyway.
We have this moment that's kind of so different than everything we see in the first 5 books, which is anytime something bad happens, you're like hoping that Percy comes across water. And he's like, "Well, I gotta land Festus somewhere. I can't land him in the water because if he sinks to the bottom, I'll never get him back up." So,
Yeah. Yeah. And one thing from this whole crash landing part, just that they crashed at this like mysterious mansion and they don't
yes.
know who it is yet. I definitely read like the first whatever couple pages because I was annoyed that I didn't know who it was when our like chapter stopped for this week, because I just want to know who it was. And I was like, oh, okay. Once
Yeah.
I saw like the dude's name. But um I forgot to mention this before, but I wanted to mention, since I've read these books before and I read them when they originally first came out and you haven't, that Medea, and when they showed up in Montreal and talked to those people, when they ended up at like Medea's lair, and this part when they're in this mansion were all times that I thought that Percy was going to show up. when I read this book for the first time. And every time he didn't, I was like let down, and then was like more like, where is he then? Like, if he's not going to show up to help them when they really need it every single time. And that's like a context of you reading this book now that you can't have. But back then, every single time they would be in danger, we would be like expecting him to show up to help them somehow. And then every time, even like the Cyclops, every single time. And then and I'm quite sure that Rick did that on purpose, that he kept putting them in these dangerous situations, thinking that the audience would think that Percy was going to show up and help bail them out, and then he never does. And so as the book goes on, you just get more frustrated of like, will you just tell me where he is? Because I've thought that he's about to show up at least 15 different times, and it's never happened. So can you just tell me where he is, for the love of God? Oh, God. Even, there's one other thing from this part that never happened because Percy can't fly. That when they were in the air before everything crashed, Jason could see like a trail that was almost like the thing that they're supposed to be following, and he was the only one that could see it because he's a Zeus child who isn't afraid of heights. And so these kids can actually fly. They can't, like, as soon as Percy is with them, they can't fly anymore. And so they have to like go on water for the rest of the story because they can't be on the earth.
They end up crash landing Festus, the cages, all over the walls of this one mansion, and Leo kind of gets knocked out while there's an explosion, so he doesn't know what happens at first. He wakes up to find out that the mansion walls were armed with lasers, and that Festus is now, in fact, disintegrated.
Poor sweetheart. Yeah, it really sucked to like read him being really sad, and that he can't hold back tears, so he just like lets himself cry. And one thing we talked about with Jason, how Jason's kind of like the definition of toxic masculinity because of Romanness, that this kind of came up during this part because he's trying to say sorry to Leo. He's saying like, I'm sorry that I said those things when we were fighting, when we were under Medea's control and stuff. But he was like trying to make him feel better, and it like wasn't working. He like kept trying until Piper tells him like, just leave him alone, and just it's going to take him a little bit of time to like work through his emotions and stuff. And Jason was almost like annoyed or something by that. And I'm like, that is toxic masculinity to a T. I think it's absolutely fascinating that one of the things that people talk about with Heroes of Olympus is they think that Rick wrote it in a misogynistic way. What are you talking about? Like, Jason is the best example for why boys and men have a hard time actually bonding, like having deep friendships, because he doesn't have a mom like Sally, and so like he's like frustrated because a lot of boys or men, women do this too, but especially boys and men, they feel like because they're supposed to be providers that they're supposed to fix things, and that when people come to them with when you come to them because you're upset about something, they think that they're supposed to somehow fix things for you. And if they can't do that, then they get like upset at you because they don't like the feeling that they can't fix something for you. And it's one of those things that sometimes when people do that, you take it out on the other person without meaning to almost, but you're like upset that they're making you feel things, and you can't like find a way to like fix the situation because they're still upset. And it's that whole thing that like Jason doesn't understand that like Leo isn't asking him to fix anything. Leo just wants his friends to let him sit there and cry and be sad that this dragon that he brought back to life died because he has abandonment problems and his mom is dead. And he was kicked out of many foster homes, and he's never had like a real family. He just wants people to like let him sit there and have emotions without making him feel bad about it. But like Jason's like almost like bothered by it because he can't fix it. And it's like, you can't fix it. And it's just so interesting to see that happen in such like a natural sort of way, because this is how that
Yeah.
actually happens. Like, I used to do
Yeah.
this all the time too. Like, up until like 2020, I thought that the only reason why people wanted me around is because I could do things for them. I still sometimes get confused that people want me around when I can't do things for them, and they just want me around to do it. I'm like, why? Why? I still think like that. But I can understand now that like, I don't have to, because that's how it was with my dad, that I felt like I had to do things to like try to control him somehow, and that was like the only role that I had. And I felt like that was the only thing that I could do to like make people happy, because that was the only thing that ever made him happy. And so this sort of thing is happening with Jason in a totally different way, but I'm like, this is why teenage boys have a hard time learning how to like really have like real, like deep, like friendships with other boys or girls, but especially with other boys, because that's such an important part of a boy, having friends that are your, like, also boys that struggle with the same sort of like social conditioning and stuff. And it's just very interesting
Mm-hmm.
to see how he puts it into books like this that goes like like right over the head of most people who read it. But I notice things like this, of course, because this is who I am.
Yeah.
But
I
it's
mean,
just
I
interesting.
even like in my own little notes, I had underlined the part where it says that like Leo didn't even feel embarrassed crying, which like is said in a way of him feeling super surprised he doesn't need to. That like I mean, I know we just talked about how these kids are falling apart more as time goes on, but they like Piper and Jason very quickly get how upsetting this is for Leo, that like Festus is out of commission completely. And like this is all happening while they're watching. Festus is able to get out some last dying wishes through Morse code,
Oh
which
yeah.
I thought was like and it goes along with what Hephaestus had said to Leo, which is um nothing lasts forever, not even the best machines, like to reuse it. And so we find out Hephaestus, or I keep, oh my gosh, their names are too close. Festus has to be reused, and Leo's also able to have Hephaestus just like take Festus's head. I've never asked you for anything, Dad. Please take this back to the workshop. And Piper and Jason are like, "Oh, you talked to your dad? What?"
Yeah. And he like is too upset to like explain to them the whole thing, so he's just like, I had a dream or something, and doesn't
Yeah,
really tell them the whole story or whatever. Just saying it is enough at this point.
yeah,
But yeah, even Leo, it's like that whole thing when you're so upset that you don't even care that people are seeing you cry because you're just too sad or whatever, that you're like, whatever. I'll probably feel bad about
yeah,
this later, but right now I just don't care at all.
yeah. Poor Leo's just like that down on himself. Um, so yeah, poor Festus, his control disc finally gave out. That the thing that like has been blaring in our faces for the past few chapters, with like the foreshadowing that it was going to eventually go out. So yeah, he basically has just the headpiece. It seems, go back to Camp Half to explain. Um, so the other part too that I think it's both Jason and Leo that have this same sentiment of like Festus was about to get scrapped before you came along, so like any part of this adventure is great that he was allowed to be on. And like even Leo thinking himself, well, he did get to have this great adventure if this ends up being it for him too, so I can't be mad. This was his purpose.
Yeah, like I said, they were tempting him with Tabasco and oil and were trying to burn him alive at camp before this. This was definitely way more fun, and his role doesn't necessarily end right now, and so he gets to do much more fun things.
Yes. So then we get to back to the idea that they're at this large mansion and they got shot down. So, like, what's going on here? And here's where we find out another secret Hephaestus kid ability is he can just figure out what mechanical traps are around. He just knows.
Mm-hmm.
So he senses it pretty immediately of like, oh, he disintegrated because there's lasers. And he like throws up a piece of Festus's body and like gets shot down immediately. But he can also sense where they're at. So at least like there's that of, yes, this is a very, very guarded mansion, but I think I know the way in.
Yeah, and there's like a million traps, and then they get up to the front door, and the front door is just open.
Yes.
And Piper's just like, after all that, you could just open the door.
So this is getting into chapter 31. We're in Jason's head now. And he describes it like it's as if Leo could smell all the traps.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a dog sniffing them out. Can't fix a dragon right, but I'm amazing. So yeah, as you said, Piper's the one to point out, like, really? The front door's just unlocked? Okay. Let's see, so back in Medea's store, he said some pretty harsh stuff to Leo. Stuff a friend shouldn't say, not to mention the fact that he almost skewered Leo with a sword. If it hadn't been for Piper, they'd both be dead. And Piper hadn't got out of that encounter easily either. So yeah, Jason's just like thinking, I think Jason's doing the same exact thing that Leo's doing, just in his own fancy flavor of everything bad that's happening on this quest right now was my fault.
Yep. They're both like taking complete ownership for it, and so is Piper. So, you know, there's that. Yeah.
Let's see. So, they can't really tell much about this house. It's enormous. It's dark. It makes them nervous because the last big penthouse they were in was Boreas's, and that's not a good sign. What do we do? Explore? Leo shook his head. After all those traps outside, bad idea. And Jason's feeling his skin tingling, feeling like there's something lurking around every corner. Demigod senses tingling. But can't really think of anything other than, okay, but let's not separate again. We're not going to repeat what happened with the Cyclopes.
Like, let's learn from our past mistakes.
Yes. Let's see, the other thing too, and I don't know if this gets revealed eventually because it doesn't make as much sense to me. So, Jason makes out on the coffee table sat a tea service and a stack of glossy brochures, but Jason couldn't make out the words. It doesn't necessarily make sense for a Roman demigod to me to have dyslexia, but I don't know if they do or not. It's actually not part of canon.
I thought it might be that they're in Greek. And he doesn't know how to read Greek.
Yeah, he wouldn't be able to. I imagine it probably, if Rick had to nail it down, he'd probably make it similar to how the Greek demigods can kind of understand Latin.
Mm-hmm. But he where, when he hears it, he can like know what the word is or figure it out, but he doesn't know how to like read it necessarily like that. That's kind of what I don't know. I just kind of figured that's what it was.
Yeah, that makes sense. Let's see. Coach Hutch is still frozen mid-shout in his cage. They basically decide, because they don't see anything, they just generally get the creeps in this mansion, but they don't actually have any present danger, that they're going to make themselves comfortable for the night, because otherwise they're going to be stuck out in the cold anyway. So like, Leo does break the tension with Jason, too, before Coach completely defrosts. And he does it by joking with him and essentially acting like annoyed that Jason's being overly apologetic.
Can you actually can you say out loud what Leo says to him?
Let's see. Jason took a deep breath. Leo, I'm sorry about all that stuff I said in Chicago. That wasn't me. You're not annoying, and you do take stuff seriously, especially your work. I wish I could do half the things you do. Leo lowered a screwdriver. He looked at the ceiling and shook his head like, what am I going to do with this guy? I try very hard to be annoying, Leo said. Don't insult my ability to annoy. And how am I supposed to resent you if you go apologizing? I'm a lowly mechanic. You're the prince of the sky, the son of the lord of the universe. I'm supposed to resent you.
I could not believe that. Like, you don't know what that means, really, but he says that later on, and I read that, and I was like, Richard, did you really have him say this twice? Fine. But that is very much like a Leo thing, that he, like what he just said, like, how you're not supposed to be nice to me. If you're nice to me, I can't resent you or like hold up resentment inside against you because you have all these things and you're, like what he said, the Lord of the Sky and all this stuff. I'm like, Leo, why? Like, why? Like, I get it. Like, when you see people that you think have things that you don't, it's easy to hold like resentment in like that. But still, none of the people he is trying to resent actually feel like that about him. And it's like already a thing where he's like annoyed a little bit at Jason. I was just like, unbelievable that he literally says like the exact words. Fine.
Okay. I guess I'll see what you're talking about later. But yeah, so this time it's Jason's turn to go to sleep. And so yeah, Leo breaks the tension with that little joke, and then he lets Jason go to sleep. Jason wakes up to Coach Hedge yelling, and as you mentioned before, believing that he's right in the middle of that attack at the Grand Canyon still.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, they have to explain what's going on. He remembers, he says, we were at the Grand Canyon, the Anemoi Thuali were attacking, and he zeroed in on the Storm Spirit cage, and his eyes went back to DEFCON number 1, die! And then they like had to tell him, Coach, by the way, you saved us. You were totally brave. And he's like, yeah, of course I was. Then we got word from the Storm Spirits. Then we got word the Storm Spirits had taken you back to their operator, Medea. That witch. Wait, that's impossible. She's mortal. She's dead. Yeah, and somehow she got not dead anymore.
That's honestly the best way to describe it.
Yeah. Somehow Palpatine came back.
Pretty much.
But yeah, so as you mentioned before, he's like, oh, so you kids looked for me, thank you. And they're like, actually no. we just discovered. And he's like, you know what, okay, but that's still good because fates are at play, especially on a quest, so that means you were meant to fight me. So this is the witch's lair, eh? Why is everything gold? And this is when the kids realize, Jason, whose head we're in particular, realized this for the first time. Oh yeah, this room, everything is gold. What is this place? So there's gold statues, there's a throne, and it says, even the curtains, which seem to have opened by themselves at daybreak, appeared to be woven of gold fiber. Let's see. So Piper tells them this isn't Medea's place. We're somewhere else. We're at some mansion we crash landed in Omaha. Hedge insisted, I'm meant to protect you. What's the quest? And just then, a pudgy man in a white bathrobe stepped out with a golden toothbrush in his mouth. He had a white beard and one of those long old-fashioned sleeping caps pressed down over his white hair. He froze when he saw them and the toothbrush fell out of his mouth. Glanced into the room behind him and called son, which I don't remember who his son is canonically. Lake, come out here, please. There are strange people in the throne room. Coach Hedge did the obvious thing. He raised his club and shouted, die.
Yep. I just love that that's his reaction. Like, there's some strange people out here in our, like, house completely made of gold or something. I I looked him up when I saw who it was, and his son's name does start with lit. It just has like more letters after that, but it does make sense that he would just call him this in this version of the story because it's just easier to pronounce.
Yeah, this is one of the more recognizable ones. Honestly, would not be surprised if it's more recognizable from Ovid specifically, because I'm pretty sure that this is one that appears in the Metamorphoses, but it's referential to Midas, which is a king who was blessed / cursed with the ability to turn everything he touched into gold, which eventually resulted in him not being able to feed himself because everything he touched turned to gold.
Yeah, and you can't eat gold. I guess you can, but that would be awful.
Yeah.
So that's it.
So, yeah, that was the chapters we read. I do love the complexity of the relationship with these kids. It's eternally frustrating that they can't get on the same page, especially it feels like the only thing really left is Piper's secret about her dad, and even with the boys prying these chapters, she's still not having it and still being like, no, I'm going to protect you guys. I'm not going to tell you what's happening. It's just, you want to shake her a little bit and be like, hello, tell them.
You know, like they're all being like annoyingly avoidant in different ways. She just won't tell them what's going on with her dad. She's so sure that everything, that they'll die, and it's just they're all doing something like that at this point. I'm like, this is interesting that they're all just like thinking that everything is their fault and that they're the reason why everything is failing when they're doing pretty good.
Yeah.
Like they're almost there. Really? They're a lot like I've had to drive through Nebraska, the most boring state in the entire world. When I was going to California, that meant we were almost there. So they're almost there. But they're so sure that everything is going to be a failure when they've actually succeeded pretty well so far at this point.
Yeah, they did better than most of the quests we've seen so far, simply for having Festus.
That's it.
Yeah, that's what we have for you guys today. I'm still on my very crazy final schedule, and our house right now is Rash City. Everybody has poison oak besides me in my house. It's been a whole adventure. Yeah. Right now we don't have a ton, but starting next week, I will definitely have more bandwidth for you guys. And yeah, if anyone else is still dealing with finals, good luck. And yeah, we will see you next week.
Bye.
All right. Bye.